It's chair. Well, I'm just going to put it yes.
There you go, perfect. Yeah, I think the file goes. Right.
I know, that I would go next to
Good.
All right, everyone, welcome to College Council. We've got a jam-packed agenda. Happy spring, everyone. A circle of light down there. My name is Ricky Shabazz. I have the honor and privilege of being the president of San Diego City College. College Council is the highest level of governance for our college, comprised of all the leaders of our constituency groups. If you would like to bring an agenda item forward to College Council, you can do so a number of different ways. Either by reaching out to one of the leaders in the constituency groups. And I want to confirm, are we live?
Yes.
Okay, great. So again, you can bring forth an agenda item one of two ways, either by working with the leaders of the constituency groups and or reaching out to my office, either Tia or LA, and they can help you bring an agenda item forward. I would like to begin College Council. Normally I begin it with a roll call. I am going to move away from the agenda just very briefly to ask everyone to join me in wishing two people happy birthday. We just learned that Magali's birthday is on Thursday and she shares it with them. LA, let's give them a happy birthday. Sorry, we don't have a neat hat for you. We do have some sparkling apple cider, and I promise you that it is sparkling apple cider. The other thing I wanted to do is really acknowledge all the hard work and dedication, the efforts that have been put into the student journey at City College. Frankly, we've seen results from day one, but in my nearly 8 years of being at City College, we've come close to hitting 100%, 98, 96. But I look forward to the day that I would see 100. Now, I'm going to say this with a caveat of caution that we have bought students, but I'm rolling with it until proven otherwise. And so I want to just acknowledge that I give the vice presidents, particularly, well, I give all of them a hard time, but when it comes to enrollment, I really give Marciano and Tilly a hard time, mainly because I don't get to be in the student journey and in these spaces. And I just wanted to acknowledge that I see you, all of the hard work and leadership and working with our chairs, our faculty leaders, our classified professional leaders, supervisors and managers. This goes out to everybody. From the person who greets the student when they come off of the trolley or out of the parking lot, and all of our student support offices, to the faculty who are still adding students in person so that they can meet their course load to get financial aid or meet the requirements to graduate or get a certificate. Thank you for everything that you all have done. I promised them already at convocation, no new projects. Now, the second promise I get to make that I'm officially, no, except for the ones that are already underway, right? The second promise I get to that I'm gonna make publicly is I'm gonna stop bugging you all about enrollment. Kind of. So with that said, thank you to everybody who played a role in this and anyone who would like to have some apple cider. This is reason to celebrate. And a couple of things that the information, the data is in your packet. More than 1,300 students this spring compared to last spring. Productivity, the highest rate possibly in the history of the college, certainly since the Great Recession. A lot of things to unpack with this. We just got it. Certainly, there's data comparing in person to online to hybrid to CCAP. Certainly want to recognize also Genevieve, Clarissa, and I got to be careful about calling names because I would call every name on the campus, but we have one of the best, I gotta rephrase that, we have the best marketing team and outreach team in the country, coupled with, faculty who go above and beyond, as well as classified professional supervisors and managers. In my role, I gotta say every group or somebody gonna say I left them out, right? But the reality is that everybody goes above and beyond to ensure that we work toward the education of our students. So I think if we could join, you could join me in a clap for that. I think it's a if no class until we find out and ensure that these are not lost. But that was not on the agenda, but when we got that data, one of my goals is to deliver good news, particularly in light of what's going on in the world and the amount of not good news that we regularly see. Anybody want to add anything, Marciano? I think you covered it all. Okay. With that said, we'll do a roll call. Beginning with the President of the Academic Senate, Mona. Tilly, Vice President of Instruction.
Present.
Robbie, Dean of Information and Learning Technology. President. Caesar, Public Information Officer. Daniel, Supervisory Rep.
Present.
Non's not with us. Standing in for Susan is Brittany. Dee is our Administrative Rep.
Present.
Michelle is the reason why we are here. Our Vice President of Associated Student Government.
Present.
John is Vice President of Administrative Services. Marciano, Vice President of Students.
Present.
Sean, who I'm glad is feeling much better.
Present.
Is our President of the Classified Senate. Justin is the past President. Justin. Welcome, past President of Academic Senate. And Marco, congratulations, just had a new addition to his family, so he's not here. Congratulations. Oh, yeah. Welcome. Those are the leaders of our constituency groups at San Diego City College. If you would like to speak to any of them about bringing an agenda item forward, please do so. They would be happy to assist, or you can also just reach out to my office. I am going to turn it over to Marciano. Excuse me. Item number 2 is approval of the minutes for December 3rd. Would someone like to make a motion? Brave soul.
This is Daniel. I motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Daniel. We got a first. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Dee. Any further discussion? Edits, updates? Again, I want to thank my office for doing the minutes and the agendas. Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Would anyone like to abstain or object? Hearing none, the minutes from December 3rd pass. And now we are going to, speaking of December, something happened in December that Marciano is going to explain. But let me just say, it's always an honor. And we say that we save lives, literally and figuratively. And we have 3 amazing City College colleagues who actually saved the life of the students. So I'll turn it over to Marciano to do the presentation.
Well, it is my pleasure to have with us today. We've got 3 folks from our Undocumented Resource Center. We've got Magali, who is our coordinator, director, chair, president, whatever title can we give you over there?
Advocate, supporter.
We've got Kendi, who is one of our project assistants there, and then Nicole, also one of our other project assistants in the center. And back in December, we had a student who was experiencing a medical emergency, and Magali was in her office and heard some of the commotion that was going on and came out, and then with the help of this amazing team here, the three of them were able to successfully provide the student with Heimlich maneuver and call paramedics. And I'm happy to say that the student really was in dire straits until the young women took action. So we wanted to recognize them and thank them for their heroism, for jumping into action. I can tell you that everybody who responded that day all said the same thing, that by the time medics arrived on scene, you all had taken everything under control. They felt like everything that needed to happen happened in a way that it needed to happen, and in a way that really saved the life of this student. So we wanted to say thank you from the college and from all of our State College family for being there and saving their life. Certificates for each one of you, so we've got Valley's. And then Big Caesar's gonna take a picture. And then, yeah, if you wanna stand up and then Ricky, you can go and take a picture.
We'll take you behind it.
Yeah, but
What is that?
our shooter comes middle here.
You did it, I thought you did it in the exec cab, I didn't know it was for college, you didn't send it to me for college council, you sent me the 10
So much.
10 months.
Yeah, and is there anything that any of you?
saw it on the
share?
center.
You need to share that?
I think,
Do you want to email it to me?
no, we just want to say, I mean, I want to say thank you for this certificate initial evaluation, but it really meant for to save a student life, and I think it's very important that we all take training. Because honestly, I did the maneuver, but I just have never done it before, and it was thanks to the training that I had taken that. It's fine, so I think just to say training is super important when it comes to CPR and things like that, so everyone's see.
Yeah,
Can I ask a quick question? How long had it been since you did? Freshman. Because I did it, I've done training before, and I was recently in some park, and there were lots of parents who done training, and a child was choking, and nobody would do it. We're lucky that there's a nurse around, but how people, and maybe remember something to do. So I'm wondering like how frequently we should be doing this. Yes, honestly, last time I took it was when my second daughter was born, so that was 4 years ago. But what I do is I have CPR instructions on my fridge and like in different sections of my house. So there is a constant reminder of, what to do, so, thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, and before you all leave, I just remember as Marciano was talking, and it really is in alignment with what Mona is saying, that these three sheroes snapped into action and responded in a way to include Magali, questioning whether the person was actually choking or not. And they one of the people running over to the health center to get someone. So thank you all. You all really did save a life. We say that as a slogan, but you all literally did. So thank you all again. Let's give them another round. And for anyone watching, if you've done something noteworthy, one, let us know. Don't assume that we know. We'd like to honor you here at College Council for the wonderful work that is taking place. Speaking of wonderful work that is taking place, we got this little thing called Measure HH, a bond to the tune of approximately $3.5 billion. And joining us is one of our vice chancellors, Dr. Joel Peterson, who will be doing a presentation. And Joel, we'll turn it over to you to introduce your team. And thank you all. I've been looking forward to this presentation.
Okay.
do we have the presentation up? Or can we bring it up?
They sent 3 different ones, so which one would they like to start with?
So we're gonna start with the overview one, the largest of the three.
Is that measure bond organization or stakeholder involvement, building in the future?
Building the future.
And while she's getting that up, Dr. Peters, would you mind introducing yourself and your team, that way we get a little time to get that up?
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Shabazz, for inviting me here, giving me the opportunity to talk about something that is exciting for all of us, and certainly just is something that makes me ecstatic. Partly because I hope it gives me some job security for a couple of weeks here. So, and with that, I brought a couple of our teammates. We have a lot of people who've been working to make bond measure a reality, and most of all, we thank our community and our voters put the trust and confidence in each of us that we can deliver what we have promised for them. And so with that, let me just go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Molly Gardner. I'm Dr. Peterson's executive assistant.
I'm Kelly Silva. I may know some of you here previously. I'm the contract officials for the.
So these are two of the most crucial yet unsung people that make my job possible. Without them processing all the contracts and making all the nuts and bolts work, and then on top of the current day job. And so at any given time, we have in our work order system, we have typically around 450 open work orders at any given time throughout the district. And then we have about 150 site improvement projects on top of that, each of which must have contracts, each of them must be bid out, each that has to be project managed. And Molly helps to coordinate all of that across all the requisitions, the purchase orders and everything that has to happen, and the invoice processing, and then all the contracts that have to go through. So every single day, making sure that we're in compliance with the law. And then on top of our normal day-to-day, just like with you all, we have this amazing gift called Measure HH. But like many gifts, sometimes there are unintended burdens that come with it. Just unwrapping the whole thing and make it all happen takes a lot of effort. So we're going to go through some of that. So what I'm going to first talk through here in this presentation is just an overview of the bond and sort of what it's going to entail and a little bit of the timeline and key milestones. And then we have a second presentation, which then speaks to sort of how and when and in what way will each of you be involved in the bond, and how will you have your input and your voice and your stakeholders have a role to ensure that at the end of the day, my job is to build for you what you need and what you want. It is not my job to build something and force you. No, our buildings exist to support the program, and you are the people that make that program happen every day. And so this is all about how we're going to go about do that. With that, if we.
Sorry, we're trying to get it to do the slide, but it's not connecting.
Oh, okay, no worries, we can, I guess, otherwise.
And everybody was emailed the presentation, so you all have the slide.
So I can just kind of talk through it anyway. I would just start those that, and it's resonated with me is, I don't know if you ever heard of Pearl as Buck, but a wonderful person who touched the lives of many orphan children. And the favorite quotes that I remember from her is that one faces the future with one's past. And I think that's what you all deal with every day with your students in your community, but we have to do that on the facility side. We have the buildings we have the infrastructure we have, and then how do we go ahead and create the future facilities and infrastructure and capabilities, given that we have what we have already. So a lot of what we're going to be doing is not just new construction, but it will be some radical innovations as well. And then we'll have some constraints based on what is the current infrastructure that we have. So think of like, you might want to have 3 kitchens in your house, but your water pump only can support so much water pressure or something like that. So again, you're sort of trapped with what has been the past, with what you can create for the future. Measure HH gives us the authority to issue $3.5 billion worth of bonds. The way that we, just to give a quick bond 101, is that our community voted itself essentially a property tax. What it said was that we will tax ourselves, and I'm one of these people. A lovely view of the back of Harvey West gym from the balcony of my condo on Cortez Hill. So I voted myself a tax saying that I'm going to pay up to $25 per every $100,000 of assessed value. We know there's a difference between this tax assessed value, what the county tax assessor says your property is worth for tax purposes versus what the market value might be. We're only talking about assessed value. And so what the voters have done is said, I will tax myself to go and if you sell bonds, which is just a IOU to investors who say, okay, I'm going to give you $100, you give me this piece of paper, you're going to pay me back that $100 plus interest over some period of time. So we are going to issue up to $3.5 billion of paper. And we just did that in January, where we issued $850 million of bonds to investors. Most of these investors, you say, who are these people? They're mostly institutional investors like CalPERS, big retirement funds, big insurance funds that look at investing in our debt instrument as a very safe investment because we are very stable. We're AAA rated by Standard & Poor's. And so we then use that money to build the facilities that we want to do. So this is a quick timeline as an overview. So in January, we issued our cash. As a public entity, we cannot legally enter into contracts that financially obligates the district unless we have the cash in the bank. So unlike you and I, we can sign a contract for a plumber to come out and do the stuff and then say, yeah, well, payday's coming up next week and I'll have the money to pay the guy next week, but I don't have it today. We, the district, can't do that. We have to have the money in the bank. So that's why we did the issuance. And based on that now, we are doing things such as establishing a Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. So if the taxpayers are going to give us all this money, the law says we have to set up an independent oversight committee made up of local citizens. And the law requires that they represent, one of them is students. One of them is somebody that's part of a senior citizens group, a business owner, a couple of at-large citizens, and then we have representing things like taxpayers associations, et cetera. And they should have some subject matter expertise about bonds and construction and so forth, so that they are the watchdog for the community to ensure that we only use the bond funds for the purposes and in the way that the voters have voted for it. So that's one of the first things that we're setting up. And in the February board meeting, the board will appoint the committee and volunteers. We had a whole advertisement for this, took applications. We've gone through the selection process, and we now have a proposed bond oversight committee. And then we are selecting now in the process what we call program management organizations. So the $3.5 billion overall is what we call a bond program. We are splitting that into 3 standalone programs. Each program has many projects inside it. So one new construction or new renovation is a project, but the overall program, how do we come up with the 3 programs? Essentially what we have is a zone 1, which is Miramar and Mesa, because they have more projects that are similar to each other, and therefore the kinds of design build teams we'll be bringing on are more similar. Zone 2 is City College and College of Continuing Education, because many of the circumstances are similar in that you don't have a lot of space on the campus. To expand anything, we may have to gain new acquisition of space and property, similar with college of continuing education. So there's similar-ish type of design and build challenges. So we created two separate programs that can focus on bringing the right kind of resources. And then we have a third program that focuses on the infrastructure. What do we mean by that? Things like our central plants, our electrical distribution systems, our plumbing systems, our drainage systems, et cetera, along with our deferred maintenance. So deferred maintenance is simply like, you know, in our cars, when we know that we're gonna have to rotate the tires sometime in the next 6 months, we're gonna have to go ahead and maybe get a new transmission in the next 3 years. That is maintenance, that is deferred and waiting for us. We have a lot of that with all the buildings that we have, new roofs that are going to be needed, new HVAC systems that will come. And when we project out across our entire district, there's about $1 billion worth of pending deferred maintenance that we need to use these bond things for. So we have 3 billion plus each huge programs that we might have trafficated that into. So you can see that timeline. We have a bunch of steps that we're going through. We'll revisit that timeline. We can move on to the next slide. All the stakeholders that are going to be involved, where you're going to be coming into play is in these stages. When we do what's called planning, programming, schematic design, interior design, finishes and materials, furniture, fixtures, and equipment selection. So none of you would we come to and say, hey, we want to run by the structural engineering calculations by you. Most of us wouldn't be able to provide a lot of, I can't. But we're not going to go to outside people and say, hey, what is the color format we should have? What is the feel and look of the things we should have? What equipment do we need in our labs? You know, what kind of computers do we want? And the planning part comes down to is, what is the sequence? Which project do you want to do first? How should we schedule this out? How do we ensure that when we do these projects, just like if you're going to renovate your kitchen, how do you do it so it minimizes the impact of your family while you're living there? We want to do the same. How do we minimize the impact? You're going to help us in that planning process. Programming is when we start to design a building, we start with, what's the building for? What are you going to do in the building? Who's going to do this? How many of you are going to be there? How often? Because then that kind of dictates how big it needs to be, how robust it needs to be, how many rooms, what size, what equipment, that sort of thing. That's the programming. And only you know that better than anyone else. So we would work with you to help define what are your needs. And then from that, we create an initial set of drawings that are called schematic drawings. Those are things that look like what you and I think about as being architectural drawings. Kind that I remember Mr. Brady left at Disneyland on a ride and they spent all 3 episodes looking for the new architectural drawings. And so we would go to you to ensure, are these floor plans fitting the way you look? You might say, there's no way we can have that office next to this practice room. You know, you can't do that. Or we need to make sure that there's soundproofing in this part, or, you know what, these 2 areas need to be much closer together. So you're going to be involved in that part as well. And then obviously, as I said, when we look at things like our interior design, when we look at furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and that's going to include things like education technology and the pedagogy equipment as well. Things like projectors and screens, and et cetera. So you'll be very much involved in that, each of your stakeholders, and we'll have the design team and the construction team working with you on that. With that, we'll just move forward to, I think, sort of the top projects on each college, just to share with you overall priorities. Next slide.
Different PowerPoint.
Oh, is it different PowerPoint?
Yes, it's the same.
Oh, this is the stakeholder one. Oh, no wonder. I was talking to a different presentation. All right, so this is talking about your role, what we would do. And so it kind of goes into more detail with each of those: planning, the programming, schematic design, et cetera. I don't want to go into all the details because I think you've had these shared. So if you want to just take the time to go through it, anytime you have questions, happy to go, and my team would be happy to talk you through with it.
Joe, would you like me to share the other slide?
Yeah, the one that's, I think, building the future.
Okay.
First of all, any questions on what I just covered right now?
And there is a handout in the packet, it's the agenda that has our first four projects that John Parker is going to speak to, because there's an action item on the agenda as well.
So just on the next presentation, I was just gonna take you through the overview, not just of the timeline, which we sort of touched on, and some of the steps. So we plan on having these program management organizations selected and on board and starting to work with us starting in March. And what they will immediately start to do is to work with us to define the scheduling and sequencing of what we're calling phase one projects. So all the projects, each of the colleges through your shared governance processes came up with a prioritization based on strategic facilities plans that have been developed over a number of years to come up with what is your ranking of projects that you would want. We took that ranking. The only things that my organization, maybe interjected or came back with some questions is if we knew there was some kind of a safety or infrastructure thing. So if you said, our first project is X, we said, oh, you know what, the current central plant isn't big enough to take that building on for heating and cooling, then we would have to say, we actually have to make the first project increase the size of the central plant. Then we can bring so not because we want to invert any of your priorities. It's just simply saying that we can't deliver your number one priority without first delivering this other kind of portion. That's all that we're saying. So a few of those we did that, but otherwise it's your priorities that matter to your program, through your processes and dialogue, and that any changes similarly goes that way. And then what we've done is we did cost estimates on every single project. And then over the past, since the bond measure passed in November, we have had my team, not just these two, but a handful of other people working frantically where we have had to create detailed budgets for every single project in the entire bond program over a 20-year program for the entire district, 168 projects, many of which devolve into tens and more of sub-projects. And we have got detailed budgets that talk about how much goes to the design, how much to concrete, how much to this. And so it's been a monumental effort by my team to do this, because as soon as we get the program management companies, they have to go through with this project, but to use those budgets to create requests for proposals, to design build teams. So they won't know what to bid on if we don't come to them and say, here is your budget. We want to see, can you go ahead and deliver building on these kinds of things? So we took a phase one, which is we took your top priorities, and essentially we took kind of the top two major projects. Many have subcomponents underneath them. And I think yours include the HVAC system. So remodel replacement of the Seville New Performing Arts Center, affordable student housing, obviously that's well underway. And the HVAC system and beach volleyball. So those are the things that we have put forward and we've budgeted, and we're looking to our phase one across the entire district ends up being about $1.5 billion in total. And you might ask, wait a minute, I thought you just said we issued 850 million. We did, because that's the maximum we could kind of issue and stay under the limits. We can't charge for more than $25 per $100,000 assessed value. But in about 3 years, the assessed values will go up and we'll have paid down some of this such that we'll be able to do another issuance to make up the difference between 850 and 1.5. So, so we're going to get things started. And that's how we're moving forward. And then we have similar priorities across all the other colleges, and they've gone through exact similar process. And again, nothing is set in absolute concrete yet. So until the concrete gets poured, we can, and you can come to us with differences in prioritization if you want. And again, this is just a timeline again of key points. We hope that we will have design build teams selected and on board then by the early part of fall of this year. And then that means we're going to start the planning programming phase starting in probably around September. So you all are going to start getting involved very soon. And we're going to hopefully get the design submitted to the Division of State Architects for approval. That takes ultimately about 8 months. So By the end of 2026, December timeframe, we hope that we'll be in the process of actually starting to break ground. And we hope that we will then have these phase one projects completed by the end of 2028 into 2029, barring tariffs and embargoes and other things that we don't always have control of. But that's sort of the key parts that we have. And you can see how we go into sort of what the first 3 months activities, first 6 months activities, the first sort of 3 years, and then the next set of years. And we basically go through what we're doing in phase one. We're just going to be repeating the phase two, phase three, and until we anticipate that we'll be doing this whole bond program for about 20 years. If you look at Measure SNN, we had those programs going on for 20 years plus. So we anticipate the same thing here. One thing that I would share, and I think this goes into the last presentation, which we might go into, this I think was the personnel or the organization chart. So just like if you decided you're going to do a bathroom remodel in your house, you might need some people to help you. So one of them is going to be a designer. You know, you're going to have a general contractor, and they're going to then get workers. But the general contractor, the designer are there to kind of oversee and manage what's happening. So when we have this large program like this, there's a whole lot of administrative jobs that have to be done to oversee, prioritize, supervise, budget, do controls to ensure that things are being spent only the way, to do the inspections, to ensure what's being built to the standards, et cetera, that have to be done. And all these jobs were done, and all this work was done under Measures S and Measures S and N as well. However, the district at that time made a decision that we're going to do all of this by hiring outside contractors to do that, consultants and contractors, companies to do that for us. You know, sort of like you might say, I'm just going to hire a architect, an interior designer, you know, and a general contractor, and they're going to have, you know, their inspector to do the stuff. Or you can decide, hey, you know what? I'm actually a pretty good interior designer. I will do it myself because I have the time. Or you might say, hey, you know what? My retired father-in-law is a retired general contractor. I'm going to have him do this. So we can do the same thing. We can do all of this additional people that we need to do the administrative, just like many of you are in administration to oversee the classrooms. Not everyone is in the classroom. We have the same kind of thing. So we can either do it with outside folks, or we can hire some internal folks, meaning create jobs that are district jobs and hire people to do them. Under our current board and our current chancellor, the decision is to try to create as many permanent district and college jobs as possible to do the work of overseeing and implementing the bond and construction projects. Why? Because we think that it's part of our mission to help create jobs, to keep them right here, to make them part of our family, and that it will be less expensive because contractors always do a bigger markup than what it would be if we hired someone directly as an employee, and that they will be part of the team. They will have their owner's perspective rather than just trying to make a profit out. Nothing wrong with making profit. People deserve to have, you know, cover their costs and so forth and take the risks and be paid for it. But this way, we can go ahead and have people who aren't motivated by profit, but motivated by our mission. So you're going to see that we're going to come with a number of positions that will come through. We also know that there's going to be positions that are going to be needed at the college. So at City College, I've already been talking with President Shabazz and Vice President, get in your name, Parker, and to talk about, you know, what might be a position, because every one of you is fully occupied and busy as all get out, and suddenly we dump this boom, you know, huge construction project on you in the administration oversight coordination from the college perspective. You're the owners, and there's going to be times that you have to give us direction, and that's going to take effort. And so we're in discussions with that, but You might ask, but if we hire all these people, then does that mean we have to not build as much? The answer is no. Part of the cost of the overall project includes the cost of administration, the soft costs. But a lot of what we're doing, so the $850 million that we just got in that's sitting in our bank account with the county, that's gaining interest. So think if we've got just 1% on that, after 1 year, we have $8.5 million of interest. We can hire a lot of people for a long time with $8.5 million.
Can I jump in real quick, Joe? I think it's important, and maybe you're gonna get there, and I apologize, because I probably got impatient. Because I'm sure you were gonna get there. I think it's important because we have the leadership of the campus, particularly the leadership of the faculty. That Joel's point about being able to hire people, it is going to be new to a lot of people. It's going to be unique. I absolutely support that our college needs at least 2 employees. One would be some kind of director over bonds that reports to John Parker. Otherwise, John Parker's got to be in all these meetings every time there's a contractor, which means that he's not running the college's finances or budgets. The second one is Caesar's office, someone to help with marketing, a newsletter, effective communications. Those are 2 at least initial positions that I've identified in talking to the vice presidents. The other thing that I want to say that I'm sure Joel was going to get to, that I almost wish everybody would write this down, because this is probably, for me, the most important part of this presentation. That anyone we hire must be working 100% on the bond. Anyone who we hire with these funds, I probably stole your thunder there, but I didn't want to get too far about talking about positions without writing that down, that anybody who we hire with these funds, so if we hire a director of bond programs, that person has to do 100% of their work with the bond program. And you can imagine 3 buildings, there's going to be enough work. How many of you all participated in the last bond program? I can tell you, I got called into meetings with someone who did not work for the district or the college and got thrown plans in front of me and made to make decisions that I had no clue about. Having a director who reports to John who can be doing this 100% means that as a college, the faculty, the classified, the folks who are in these buildings have someone advocating on their behalf who does not work for the contractor. That was my one thing that I learned coming into the last bond program toward the end, is that we had these project managers who were making decisions for us who were not employed by the college. And I'm sorry, I just wanted to make sure to get that piece out.
That was perfect and brilliantly said. Exactly. So to President Shabazz's point, many people have said, wait a minute, I thought the voters said you can only use bond funds to build things. Well, obviously, someone has designed it, that's part of building. Somebody has to do the soils testing. So those are all things. So basically, the law says you can use bond funds for salaries and benefits of employees if that job or that job's activity would not be needed except for the bond. The bond requires this job to have to exist, or this task to have to exist. So there is possibilities that it could be where one of your positions might be partially funded by the bond. Maybe total compensation, maybe whatever it still is today. But what we're just saying is that it isn't unlawful to use the bond to help to implement the bond. But to President Shabazz's point, we have to be able to justify, we will be audited on that. So part of what I have to do and my team has to do is to keep track. And we're working with HR departments to make sure we have the tools and the ability to ensure that we can account for that. Because this is something that the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee is going to want to approve of. Our auditors will go ahead and look through this and we will be able to present. And in the past bond programs will tell you the district had 100% for over 20 years. Every single year, we had an absolutely clean audit on measures S&A.
Can I say one other thing? Because I don't hear my faculty asking questions, but I know them well enough. that I'm anticipating some of the questions that they're going to ask. A lot of these positions are going to be managed. Right, and I'm already hearing terms like management bloat and things of that nature. And so know that the nature of the kind of work that's going to be done in the bond is that of an administrator, so that when that person goes and meets with a contractor or an architect, a lot of them, not exclusively, but a lot of them are going to be higher level positions given the nature of building construction. So I want to get ahead of that as you start to see some of these positions get posted, that this is on GFR and not GFU. So I just want to get ahead of that piece as well, as you all are likely to get questions when some of these positions start getting posted. How is the district affording to hire all of these positions? And that's because these folks are going to work I don't know that they're all going to work 100% on the bond, but in order to get paid through the bond, they have that portion that they are charged to the bond has to be 100% toward the bond. Is that a good way of saying
Perfectly
it?
said. That is perfectly. Yes, Mom.
Can you go back to the last slide, please? Yes,
There's a few different ones, so.
that one, yes.
And I'm
Okay.
jealous you can actually see that.
Barely. Give me 5 more years, I'll probably be with you, but. So I just want a little clarity on this. What does this mean? Is we're gaining two new associate vice chancellors and a vice chancellor, or these, just explain to me a little bit.
No, so it's the top green guy is me.
Oh, okay.
So we're not doing, so only the blue, so we actually have currently Lance Rowe, who is our district architect and building official. Think of his normal job is he's pretty busy all day. And now we got $3.5 billion worth of stuff. And to President Shabazz's point, you'll see a few managers kind of thing, but literally half of that 3.5 billion is personnel costs for the people who are working. And those people are going to be workers. So these are the concrete people, the steel people, these are the carpenters, they are the electricians, they are the earth movers, the equipment operators. So when we're talking about, we are going to create, literally tens of thousands of living wage, working skilled labor jobs. What we're talking about here is we're going to have a few handful of manager jobs that the district will hire to help the administration of overseeing hundreds of workers. These workers are going to be employed by contracting companies. They will not be our employees, but it's just to say that when we're talking about jobs. So one of the things here is that we would be looking to upgrade our current district architect to an associate vice chancellor role, because the scope of responsibilities really is an executive level. This person would need to have at least 2 assistant district architects reporting, because we're going to have 3 big bond programs, each with over $1 billion of new construction that they have to oversee the design of. So that's what you're kind of seeing in blue. Is anything that is new or changed from what's existing?
Can I chime in also? I think, and you touched on it, but I want to drill down a little bit. Well, if I understand your question correctly, but what will happen, since a lot of these positions are being proposed to be split funded, GFU possibly, some of them could be split funded GFR, but I would assume GFU and then the bond program. What will happen is that the 50% that is being charged to the bond then makes a salary savings of 50% that then can be used to create other positions. So if I was split funded, even though currently I'm 100% on GFU, and we get a grant, and then we split fund my position because I'm doing half of my work on that grant, then that frees up the other 50% of my salary that was 100% prior to the bond or the grant to be used to hire additional people. And that's where this gets tricky for folks who are not embedded in these kind of financial approaches that frankly we do regularly, like there are colleagues sitting right next to you that are split funded between a GFR or a GFU position, and that frees up the salary potential. I think that's.
That's really what we're going to be looking at. It's not only will there be, so as an example, everyone you see right here, it's gonna go from 100% GFU for our salary and benefits to, like, for myself, it'll probably be where I'll be 50% bond, 50% GFU. And we're going to do that across my entire team. So we're gonna create this pool of GFU that will go back to the district, back to Chancellor and the CFO to look at how they should be reallocated out for potentially new positions. This should help us to be able to then invest more in faculty positions, because as we look, part of thing is typically if we have more classrooms, we have to hire more faculty, but then we have to have more custodians to clean the classrooms. But with the bond funds itself. So we may have to hire some custodians that are going to be just dedicated to working on supporting bond project site maintenance and cleanup, as an example, or grounds people that are going back, or electricians. So we will have some.
And I want to be careful because I heard something that I'm wondering if my colleagues heard, and I want to clarify, because the way I heard it is not the way I believe it was intended, right? And so the piece of this that we also need to track is that over 20 years, this money is going to go away, right? And so likely people are going to retire or find other positions. But Joe, you mentioned something, and I think it warrants a clarification. The 50% probably should not be of GFU that's freeing up, should probably not be used to hire faculty, because eventually this bond is going to go away, and then his salary, and he may or may not still be in the position in 20 years. I won't be here in 20 years from now, but when his salary goes back to 100% GFU, if you use that 50% that was freed up to hire a faculty member, now you don't have that 50% anymore. So I heard that piece.
Yeah, my apologies. I was meant to use it just simply as sort of an example of, redeployment, but you're absolutely right that you have to think about the long game. In practical purposes, the positions we're creating are going to be attractive for a lot of people because they can come have a full career through the life of the bond, a 20-year career. But just like we did with the Measures S&N, we managed how that went through, and we were able to pay for a lot of the administrative burden through the interest income that we got on Measures S&N.
And I just know Justin had a hand as well.
Yeah, so I appreciate going deeper into the details because I did hear that part like that. So I have two questions. One is, so the idea of splitting the funding between bond funded aspect and then the GFU or the GFR. If we're pulling people from the district, then it sounds like it would be administrators. Then wouldn't that necessitate the hiring more administrators to pick up the slack of what they can no longer work on? So for instance, somebody's hypothetically a dean who goes on to become part of this bond measure, then wouldn't we need to hire a dean?
Yeah.
To pick that slack. So there is going to be more hiring of the fund administrative side. Which leads to my second question, which is what would be the qualifications for an administrator? Why administrator specific? I'm just curious. What would be the qualifications for somebody to be in these positions overseeing the bond in which people would be reporting to them? When you first said that, I thought it'd be like, oh, well, we have architects, or we have people who have that specialized knowledge that work on our campus. That's what I thought, but it sounds like it's just somebody who's in an administrative position. And that would be because they have administrative training, or what
so as an example, that's a great question. Very thoughtful. So part of my responsibilities, I cannot, just like the chancellor, he's going to have to deal with some of the bond kinds as well. So legitimately, he's going to be in, say, 10% of his time might be in meetings that are just bond related. Could we decide to cover 10% of his salary with bond? Legally, yes, we could track that. Would we backfill and create a vice chancellor for substitute? Probably not. it's just gonna be an extra workload. What are the qualifications? So within my team, kind of things is, if you need to understand it's on like construction finance, construction engineering, building specifications, the labor code with regard to skilled labor, project labor agreements, construction contracting, construction accounting, construction inspections and standards. All of those are things that we need to have. Construction program managerial controls. What do we mean by that? So you have to make sure that, how do you ensure that this invoice is legit? And how is it tied to which contract? Who decides that? How do you prove that invoice X belonged to contract Y and contract Y was lawfully authorized and that we had checks and balances? We have to have people who go ahead and document that and to be able to give proof of it. So you can't just bring somebody who says, there's this very special skilled set of people that may be running, a chemistry laboratory, but they do not have the same skill set to come there to do construction management.
Yeah, let me jump in if I could. Justin, the example that you used is actually less likely to happen where we're taking one of our managers, unless the district steals them away, chapters, right? We have people that go between campuses. It's less likely to happen. For me, when I was looking at what position do we need, I was using it based on who I knew would regularly be in the meetings, which would be the VPA. And say, okay, we could hire a supervisor. But then for me, frankly, as the president, I want to be able to go to a manager and hold them accountable if something goes wrong. And because we're in a union environment, that is a little different of a process when you don't have when you have a non-manager making some of these decisions. The other piece of it, Joel did say or allude to that there will be hiring of classified professionals. Given the nature that we're talking about construction, the least likely to be hired is faculty, because again, even though Joel gave a much detailed explanation of the kind of things that are happening, but a lot of this is technical in terms of the building trades. And when you're in the building trades, typically these folks respond to people, and I'm not saying I agree with this, but they tend to respond to people with titles versus those that don't. And so if you have somebody building a $300 million student housing, you want someone at a certain level and expertise and skill wise to be able to hold the folks who are building these facilities and the trades that were mentioned accountable at a level that, so because they have experience in managing these kind of larger projects. I don't know if that gets to your.
It does, I'm a little more confused because I thought the idea was to hire internally. And then to hire internally admin.
But well, I'm sorry, finish your question.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, who would have these skill sets in terms of internally? Because it sounds like you're describing.
We're going to create new positions that most of the people that are currently employed would not have the skill set.
Because we didn't do it this way. We didn't do it this way last.
We'd be hiring people from the outside to become internal employees versus external contractors.
And if I could, and I see Mona's hand, if I could just get to one other piece to Justin's question. That this does take some unpacking, because where I agree to this is these people who we would normally sub this work out to, and they're normally consultants that do this work, would not be an employee of the district, and we would be spending a great deal of this $325 billion in the pockets of people who are not employees of our district. So what we're doing is taking positions that normally the district would consult with contractors or consultants and saying, we're going to create these job descriptions so that these people are more impartial to us versus the contractors who they are managing our work. Sorry.
Yeah, I have two questions. One is, as we reclassify some of these positions and then create new positions, what happens to those positions after 10, 20 years, depending on how long? I know some projects will end and some positions will be obsolete. Will we need to continue to employ them? Or, for example, with the associate vice chancellor who will be reclassified, what happens to that position in, at the end of the bond projects?
That's it. I want to say these are several questions. Part of what, for manager and administrator positions, we're all contract. So, they understand that you're coming on for the duration of the contract, both the combination of duration of the contract and duration of any funding associated with it. And to, like President Shabazz pointed out, we do this just day in, day out anyway with GFR, grants that come in. Oftentimes, you have a 5-year grant, and along with it, there is a manager that position that's created for a certain duration, and they're hired under contract for that. This would be the same way. So no, once the funding goes away or the contract ends, there's no guarantee that the position will remain. And people who step into these, even though they are our employees, they can work towards retirement under the statute and so forth, and they have all the benefits. They are not guaranteed that they will be employed for 35 years.
Yeah, and I would even add to that moment that it is easier to do a reorg and to do a non-contract renewal with an administrator than it is a faculty or classified professional. An example would be when I want to say about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe you remember this, Justin, you may have been the president of the academic senate then. The then chancellor determined that we didn't need a vice chancellor of student services and a vice chancellor of instruction. And so they did away with the vice president, with both of those vice chancellor positions and combined it into now what is Susan Tomlinson's position. So it's actually easier to do that at the vice chancellor, president, vice president level than it is to do that with our bargaining units. That thing regularly happens. The other piece that I would add that I know Joel probably would say is I would imagine in 20 years the then chancellor is probably going to go out for another bond when this bond program ends. And if you look back at those districts that are successful in getting bonds, they typically are going out for a new bond when the current, and we're an example of that, right? Proposition S&N just ended. As soon as all the numbers worked out and the polling looked good, we're going out for another bond because you figure the buildings that we're not attending to in this program in 20 years are going to need attending to.
Exactly. A lot of the Measure S&N buildings, are 10, 15 years old at this point. So in 20 years, they're pushing 40 years old. And it's going to be cheaper to potentially build new ones than to try to, because who knows what the technology will be at that point and what your successors are going to be working with. So that's the reality, is that we'll probably have more of these. But again, we have more flexibility with regard to administrative jobs. But again, this is just to share with you all that there's a lot of complexities, not just in the construction part where you can drill down into endless rabbit holes, but just also in the putting this to management. And Chancellor Smith really said it well. He said, at the end of the day, all of this work has to get done. We're managing, overseeing. We have 2 ways we can do it: through all contractors and consultants, or with as many people that we can bring into the fold and create as employment opportunities inside the district. Some may be people who are already employed here that says, hey, you know what? I actually got a construction management degree on the side while I've been working here, and I want to go ahead and apply for this. So there's opportunities. And also during the life of the bond, you might see that people, who was an electrician might say, you know what, I'm going to get some training certifications so that they might then, when a construction management position opens up through the life of the bond, they can apply. So we hope that we will create more career pathways for not just management, for people who are right now classified.
Yeah, and I see we are up against
Sorry
time,
about
but no, it was necessary, and this will not be the last time that we talk about this. I would invite you all to look at over these PowerPoints as Vice Chancellor Peterson rolls out his plan, and as you see and hear more about what positions because we're in the beginning of this, right? We're in this for the long haul. I would expect people to have questions, because I have questions. I would expect you all to look at all these positions, and we encourage you to bring your questions forward. I would also encourage our faculty, classified leadership, that if there's an opportunity to invite Dr. Peterson to your respective meetings, that you take him up on that opportunity as well. I have to say that initially when this was presented to me, it raised an eyebrow, but as I started to unpack the reality that we have an opportunity to either hire these folks and they become our employees or hire consultants, I'd rather people be our employees than to be consultants, having gone through this before and seeing the things that we were told were going to happen. And when we went into these buildings, some of them weren't delivered as they were promised. So that's my lived experience. I don't know if that's the experience of you all, but I can go through buildings, the T building, this building. I came here right when I want to say this building, the T building, the Child Development Center, and there were some interactions with these consultants that weren't the most positive experience I've had in my career. So I would much rather they be employees.
There will still be quite a number of consultants, because it doesn't make sense, some of these positions, to have them in-house, because they're going to be more episodic, very short-term kind of thing. So it's really a combination. It's just a matter of things. But I think you had one other one.
Yeah, just had a really quick question. Is there somewhere where we can get a list of all the positions that will be created or be classified?
We do have that list, because obviously I'm planning for this over the whole 20 years. So it's a little bit misleading, because that'd be like, maybe if you're doing family planning, you could show that, oh, you know, I plan on having 5 children, and you show this like family tree, but it's like, there's only you right now. And you're anticipating only being a partner sometime in the next 5 years. So we're not gonna have all these positions. So I'm a little bit hesitant to go, because I have to do the planning, because I have to think about budgeting at different points along the way. So do I have a tentative list of all potential future projects? The answer is yes. Would that make sense to you? Because if you see that, you're gonna say, this looks like
You're
40
gonna
or
hire
50
all these positions.
40 or 50
That's what I said.
people. Yeah, and the answer is no,
Not
not
at the same
tomorrow,
time.
not in 2 years, but over the life of this, I have to plan this kind of thing, because it's all sequential. So that's why we tried to bring it down into what we thought was within the phase 1 area, which is really over the next 5 to 6 years, which is going to be the sweet spot of most of our time, you know, for the foreseeable future. And then it'll be very similar for the next few.
Yeah, but there will be points in time where this will come before this group. But even in your role as an academic senate president, Sean Ryan and I, any new positions will have to come through district governance council before they go to the board for approval. Right, so you'll see these in points in time, but I do agree, for those of us that may not do this every day, frankly, to see the list that I've seen needs to be parted out in terms of over the course of the bond program. Because again, we're talking 20 years, but these positions will come for further discussion before they wind up getting approved.
We have to go through the whole same.
Even what you put up there constitutes a reorg would have to go
Yes.
as those positions are
Yeah,
created.
this is just a very preliminary look, and we're starting this whole participatory process right now, today with you all. And love the questions that you ask, because some of those are important.
So I'm going to keep us moving. There will be ample opportunities to continue to have these discussions. It's new to me, it's new to our district. Once you drill down, it does for me start to make sense when and where possible to have these folks who we would have had to hire either through the consultant process. And to put it in context, and Joel, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm guesstimating. But typically when you hire a consultant, they're charging you double of what they're generating, right? So if I own a consulting company and and Justin works for me and I need to send him out to generate revenue, I'm gonna charge double what Justin pays, because I gotta pay him and I gotta make a profit. Whereas if we hired some of these people, there's not a profit motive in that person doing said job. And is that a good?
Absolutely correct, plus the fact that, they have to cover 100% of the payroll tax associated with that individual. But when we hire each one of us as employees, we're contributing towards our own social security, retirement benefits, and the district then also then has some portion. So it ends up being significantly less expensive if we have as many people be employees versus hiring contractors. There are many times it will make sense to have the contractors because we can't ramp up someone and do all these kind of.
Yeah, and it's not lost on me that folks are going to have questions. I would expect you to have questions. And I would even expect people to have questions when they see all of this hiring going on the bond program, or any hiring going on the bond program. And the college might not be able to hire positions that we need, right? Because you have this separate pot of money that has to be spent or used for the construction. I'm gonna keep us going, but thank you. Let's give Dr. Peterson and his team a round of applause. Thank you. Please go through the PowerPoint if you want to bring this forward as another agenda item. I would welcome.
Thank you.
So matter of fact, let's add this TIA back on the agenda for the next meeting. That gives people ample time to go through. You see how serious this is, right? Please look at these positions. I can tell you, I am absolutely looking at them, and Joel will tell you I am absolutely asking questions as well. So we are monitoring this to include working with our team to say what positions.
Thank you.
What positions do we see us needing? And right now I've identified two. One would be a what amounts to, John Parker, a third director position that is entirely on the bond that will work with the departments that are moving into these areas. And I've already met with athletics, and I've already met with performing arts and the deans with their respective parts. Any other questions before we move on? And I would like to take the liberty to go out of order and turn it back over, or turn it to John Parker for an action item that is item 14 on the agenda, because it pairs with this. And so, John, do you want to go?
Yes, certainly. Moving volleyball up on the priority list, that's the item. Then we'll get into the request one. The item is on page, and we talked about it, but I want to revisit what was, it's not paginated, but it looks like it's the last page, which are the top 10 projects. Again, these are from the survey focus group, our consultant that we engaged. We want to combine move up volleyball. Number 2, which is renovate Harry West Gym and air conditioning. That should actually read just like Joel's did. You may have seen that it included beach volleyball.
And we brought it the last when the volleyball came. This is almost a second read of this, right? So this went to the academic senate.
So it should read like Joel's. I didn't provide the latest revision, but there is a picture of volleyball, beach volleyball, and that's not what it's going to look like, but it was just to provide the visual effect. So it is item number 2 to renovate Harry West Gym to include and including beach volleyball courts, to move that up. You guys may recall, and it's on our website, the list that was produced, and I forget the organization's name, it escapes me. Volleyball was down a little bit further, but because of, as Joel was explaining, with economies of scope, when you have people and you have architects, engineers, and trades with the same skill set, it's best to lump them up as best we can, because we save a little money rather than bringing them back down the road. And for other academic program pieces as well, we want to lump that in with the Harry West Gym.
And I would just add that when John talks about the economies of scale, what this boils down to is that we have a certain amount of money that has been allocated to the campus in this 850 million. So with 2 very large projects, you're trying to find some smaller projects that you can fit into there to maximize the selling of the first. bond. If this came before this group, in the fall, I think in December, not in October, where the volleyball coach and athletics came and presented the data. We had already been shopping volleyball and trying to get it funded in other ways. So this is about roughly $2 to $3 billion project that would go near the softball fields. So we like to take a motion for approval of this. Their motion.
I'll say Sean, motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
On second.
Any further discussion?
I have a question,
Yes.
and I'm sorry if it's a little off topic, but number 5, when you see classroom and part of the building. How is this related to some of the concerns about the program, parts of the programs, and that they their requests for NLT, and all of the things that you brought up about the seeds, classroom and farm, farms.
So, first I want to give Tilly an opportunity.
So I'll just follow up that they kind of jumped ahead there. So right now there is no sunsetting the program. Once they realized what it took, we're re-looking at the program and revamping instead of sunsetting. So that was something that some people just thought, hey, this is what we need to do. Faculty member. We have many programs on this campus that have been running for at least 6 years that I've been here without any contract back. So I think that was kind of like a misnomer for them. They didn't understand that. So they're still moving forward. They're still looking for funding for the farm and other things. So
And I would also say that number 5 is not a $2 million project. We're talking about redoing that whole area and building an outside, essentially relocating. It is not a $2 million, a $2 million project.
Sorry.
But it wouldn't, no, that's what we're here for, to answer questions. And I expect people to have questions about this, like, where is this going? And what about me? And how about this? It also has to do, Mona, that we already have quotes for the volleyball. So we had already been shopping the volleyball. We have no architectural designs. We don't have anything for seats. And so that alone causes us to go out to bids, where we already have contractors that have mapped out how to build the volleyball courts. Yes.
What about me? My question is, so we're voting to add the volleyball to the list of priorities.
No, we're voting to move it up to include it with item 2 because it's ready to go. Like in construction, they say shovel ready. Like this is a shovel ready project with what is available in the selling of the first bonds that we can do this. And it's not going to take as many years as it's going to take to go and get architectural designs of what the new seats is going to look like and what the new theater is going to look like. And you all who have been here know that even though a project is number 1, it might not finish till number 7 based on and that's the notion of the economies of scale.
Yeah, the economy scale and scope, and I would consider it as a bundle essentially because it's low hanging fruit. And we didn't expect them to be so far apart. It was actually the Gordian Core Assessment. That was the company that ranked all of these. So we're just trying to bundle them among them together to save time. If it doesn't have to go.
Shovel ready,
Yeah.
what can be paid for in this issuance of the bond program, and it's not going to take 3, 5, 6 years to build. Other question? So we got a first and a second, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone want to abstain or object? Motion carries, 4. John?
Yes, form, thank you, and we'll bring that up real quick. Yeah, that's a little tiny, but we'll blow it up. It will be on our website this week. In this format, it's not fillable, in which I was going to upload it. I have to convert it into fillable, and that really just takes a couple minutes to do so. But once it is, we'll have it available on the website. This is a similar form to what we've had previously, request for space. This is specifically for the bond for projects that were not included in the facility strategic plan, nor was it included in the Gordian bond ranking. a lot has changed since then, as you know, there are different requests, different needs, we're in a different environment. So this form is just that, and it requires justification of how it aligns with the college's mission, how it will increase student success, what does it mean for student success? And for the program, there's questions regarding safety. Is it in the program review? So it will have to be a detailed justification and a description in the project. More importantly is completing this and having it approved up until me does not guarantee that the project will be added, nor does it guarantee that we will have funding.
Can you say that one more time and a little louder?
Approval of the form does not guarantee that there will be funding, nor does it guarantee that we will move forward with the project. It is contingent on remaining funds after the prioritized projects are complete. So we have to ensure that those are complete with the funds that have been assigned for those projects. Then they will be considered and ranked based on the request. So it'll go to me, it'll go to the Facilities Planning Committee, Review of Services, ultimately here to College Council, and then to the district to confer with the district. Yes, Mo.
What role will Senate play in that approval process? So recently, we've had groups come to Senate asking for support and including various projects that have that specifically. And my understanding is that some groups will be directed towards us for support for the projects. So can we have, or maybe we need to talk about where Senate will fit into all of that, if that hasn't been discussed already. Figure that out.
My first reaction or response would be representation on the various committees, but if you want specific to present to the Senate, I mean, I'm amenable to that. Is it a voting or for information? So I think the voting is representative on each of the committees.
That's where this gets tricky. What we typically, Mona, require people to do, much like volleyball did and Sean and Bradford did, is to go what we call very affectionately the road show, right? And so once it leaves John Parker and his committee, which has your representation on it, and hopefully those faculty and classified and managers are reporting back to their constituency groups that this is coming forward. Once it gets through John Parker's committee, of course it's the college's committee, then we would expect people to go on the road show. And so we require before, and this, it'll ultimately wind up here, that before something comes here, that it has to go on the road show.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Okay. You're welcome. Any questions regarding the form? But again, I just wanted to highlight there's no guarantee. It's contingent on remaining available funds after the priority projects are complete. And it's at the discretion of the district in terms of priority and funding.
And this is not an invitation for people to say, what about me? It is an invitation if there's an urgent or an emerging need that we just didn't consider when we wrote this plan 2 years or so ago.
About 3 years.
And so, again, this is an invitation to make sure that there is a vehicle, a process for folks who have emerging things that we just didn't capture, and that there is a place and a process to have a discussion. Yes.
Ask about the professional learning center. Because it's been moving through, it's in the education master plan, it's gone through, went to facilities management, and it's been, it's on the roadshow. What's the approach to taking that? Do we use that one?
No, what that will, so Anna, what I'm asking Claudia to do is combine everything in the library. And I say that also very affectionately. What we learned from this is that the chair of the library, Daniel, there was a reimagining of the library and others, that now we need to bring all of this together. So at some point, Claudia is going to be convening a meeting with the Reimagining the Library team that the Professional Development Center will come, so that we have one plan for the library. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the library is already part of the facilities plan, so it would be included that.
So back to your point, Ricky, about motivations for wanting to fill out this form, I think one thing I've understood is that there's a uneven learning curve here in terms of, you know, everything associated with this. And so the last few academic senate meetings, people have been asking a lot of questions and gone through the process up to the form. And so just to clarify and be ready to communicate, because I'm sure our post-academic senate meetings is a big issue. Process is that, of course, anybody can submit a form, right? But we're encouraging them to think through in terms of how it relates to the mission and all of the alignments with college. But in terms of the shared governance process, the form will go, it sounds like there were 3 different areas. One that you said go to you.
The request goes to me initially,
Right.
to submit.
And then that would be forwarded to the
Facilities, correct.
And then would the deliberation process, in terms of ranking or accepting or moving something off the list happen in that particular?
No, the ranking would happen with the district because we have to consider the other schools as well.
Right.
So we can't guarantee it, and the district says, I know we have a priority.
But if I could, John, respectfully, the ranking will occur in a number of places. Right, first with John, right, because it's got to get through his committee first, because that's the role of the committee, is to look at facilities, deferred maintenance, those kind of requests. From there, it goes on the road show and then people give feedback, and ultimately it winds up here. So even before it gets to the district, it's got to get to college council.
Right, that's what that's what I'm trying to clarify. So in the facilities committee, would that be a place where things would either be disapproved or approved to move forward to the next step?
Correct.
Okay. With the understanding that doesn't mean it's going to move forward all the way to the realization, just it'll move forward to this.
Correct, so that's where the district's part comes in.
And if that piece is not on this form, let's add a flow chart so that there's a visual to say it starts here, then it goes here, then it winds here, then it's got to get there. Let's add a flow chart.
And I would be happy to visit college council to answer any questions you guys want to invite me.
Be academic.
So, thank you, we're at college council.
I'm sure we will be invited.
Yes, absolutely.
Let me move us on, and I have a hard stop. We welcome Anna Rogers by way of Marco, who was voted on to College Council October 8th. So welcome, Anna. You did a wonderful job at convocation. Thank you. My updates, I'm going for a goal unless there are questions, because we addressed item 6 mostly at convocation. This is a very interesting time we're living in, and I assure you that the district and the district's leadership, which includes college leadership, is working with all parties who could be affected and are affected by these executive orders. More on that to come, because they seem to be coming out every day. Know that there are going to be a lot of court cases that put a stay on these things. Anybody want to say anything about that or ask any questions? Marciano, Black History Month.
You have in your packets, some flyers of some of our, Black History Month, events. Note, which include our Black Employee, Mixer and the Black Educator Network event. There's also we sent out the links, Deanna Shelton just recently sent out an email, with the link to the most current, Black History Month calendar. So we're asking folks to make sure that if you have any Black History Month events that you add them to the calendar. I know Professor Tyree actually today sent out another link with all the Emoja movies and things that they're gonna be showing. So it's kind of moving things, but there's lots of events that are happening, and really we just want to signal to folks that we've got things that are in the works, and we need folks to support the programming efforts that are on the way. So, but stay tuned and please check we're trying to compile them all into one place so that folks don't have to go around searching for them. So click on the link that Deanna sent out. We're gonna upload all of those other ones that the one-off that we got to.
And let me anticipate this question. Do you need to be a Black employee to attend the Black employee luncheon? Absolutely not. Matter of fact, I'll ask Angel to invite College Council there. This luncheon is our second time doing it to honor our Black employees who have been here for more than 15 years. You all know that we just don't have a space on campus where we can host a lunch without including the entire campus for anything more than 100 or so people. And so we send out an invite to all the managers. One will go out to College Council and the Black employees directly. It also is an opportunity for folks who work in different parts of the campus who just don't know each other because they don't interact. Like, there might be folks who don't know that we have 2 Black faculty in nursing. Why? Because maybe they will go into the building to see the nursing faculty. We did the same thing during next month, and just looking for an opportunity to get groups of employees together that typically don't come together, but no one will be turned away. Obviously, there are budget realities. The food is not free, it costs, the space is not unlimited. But everyone here will be invited, and no one is ever turned away to any events that we have on campus. We are an inclusive environment. Any questions for Marciano about item number 7? I will turn it over to Mona, but I would imagine that Justin may have something to say, because I think it is also Chicano Studies that is putting on item number 8, but Mona requested the agenda.
Packet, and I just have flyers that are hopping around. This academic senate is co-sponsoring this anti-racist education institute. There are 2 separate events on the same day, February 20th. One is 9 to 11. The other is 3 to 5. I believe the 9 to 11 is they're both open to everyone, of course, all employees. Community members. I think the 3 to 5 is more focused on teaching pedagogical practices, but students are welcome. So Michelle, please share with ASG.
Yeah, well, I mean, other than what Mona said, I would just say this is the Chito group is a very respected professional development organization that's rooted in Arizona, where for several years there was a significant battle. This was the first battleground over the right to teach ethnic studies, and in this case in particular Chicano studies, or what was called Mexican American studies. And this was the first state that banned it, and it was under in an environment in which there was a lot of racism and discrimination against Mexican and Chicano peoples in Arizona. And so this program, Chito, grew out of a faculty-led student and community coalition in Tucson that basically carried out a very heroic struggle to fight for the right to have access to Chicano studies, and they won. And so that's a way of understanding the significance of this, but then they evolved into a very specialized faculty and student-centered professional development program that has been used, or that's actually traveling around many parts of the country to train and do these anti-racist trainings. And I would say I probably don't need to remind people in an environment in which racism is actually the ruling political system now, and that we have pushed back against that, but also better develop and understand how to serve our students, both in terms of pedagogy, in terms of how we teach, how we learn, and the kind of environment that we're creating. So I would encourage everyone to be part of it and share the information with others who may be interested. Thank you.
Yeah, so if you're a manager, please share with your faculty and with any employees, hospital employees, all of them.
And I asked Caesar to include a blurb about this in the newsletter that'll come out any day now. I'm gonna table 9 and 10 into the next meeting. I do need to take a vote for 13, which has already been presented to the academic senate, which was converting a coordinator position to a director to be in alignment with the other basic programs in our district, and frankly, many of them in the state. Is there a motion to approve item 13?
This is Sean, motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Michelle. Second. Is there further discussion about item 13? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? We already did 14. I apologize. We had a meeting in January. We tried to pack this agenda to make up for 2 meetings versus 1. And we could have had an entire meeting just on the facilities piece. But when we made the agenda, I did not know there would be additional positions that would be proposed in the facilities. So with that said, number 9 really is in the package that Tilly can go over. She had to get an interview, which is why she couldn't present. I skipped over the ideas piece, and Brittany, thank you for coming, but it is actually 4. Does not need to be decided today, although it was, we were hoping that it would be. But in the interest of time and the fact that Susan is not here, and I know you would have done a wonderful job as your wonderful person, I'm going to table number 12 to the next meeting. As well, that also gives us time for the Dean of Ideas, possibly to have the ideas meetings. It needs to go back to the committee, the ideas council, rather, the ideas council for a vote on who that person would be. So that way, when we bring this back, Tia, Claudia, hopefully we should have a name of who that person could be, because it might be a manager, but it also might be a faculty, it could be a classified professional that is coming from the ideas committee. But with that said, let's table item 12, and I humbly apologize, Brittany, because you were over there ready to do your thing. But we are at the hour, and I actually have a hard stop myself. Any other updates for the good of the order? And I'm going to also publicly request that Tia and Angel not let me put 15 things on the agenda. But I am a recovering agenda person. Anything else for the good of the order? Let's try to keep it to the 5, and I think we might have 5 minutes already. And they told me so. That's the book that I told you. It was good to see you all. A lot of good things with the energy on campus. Thank you. I got a number of emails from faculty that said their classes are bursting at the seams. That is always a good thing. Thank you to everyone who are helping our students find their classes, getting classes, access to resources. Good to see you all, and we will see you in 2 weeks where we will not have 15 items on the agenda.
Welcome back.